Hey guys, welcome back. A few things before we get started. Don't forget our newest affiliate, Ascent Nutrition, has some amazing products, and including coffee, algae oil, which is better than fish oil, and pine needle extract, which I've been putting in my smoothies, tea, taking it by itself. It's amazing stuff. It really helps work with your pineal gland and open that up, decalcify that. According to Aaron, this is the best coffee he's ever tried. That
I'm
link.
drinking it right now.
Oh, nice.
Literally drinking it right now.
Beautiful.
Best
That link,
coffee ever.
guys, check out. They have many other products on the website. The link is below. You can check out all their products. Highly recommended. Some great stuff. And if you missed that episode with Lance Shuttler, he goes through the products and explains it. Some really truly organic stuff, all naturally supplemented ingredients. No artificial anything. It's how we should be eating all the time. So make sure you check that out. Ascent Nutrition. That link is below. Don't forget Hopewell Farms CBD. If you're looking to try a new CBD, you can get 10% off all their products with promo code Journey to Truth 10. That link is below also. And our Teespring merchandise is all 20% off with promo code 20 and back. That link is below. So tonight we are joined by Diana Dunbar of Alliance of Experiencers. So which actually it's a support group that she created for people who've had experiences involving the secret space programs, ETs, extra-dimensional beings, paranormal phenomena, et cetera, et cetera. And she's also an intuitive channeler. And I'm really excited to see what we're going to get into today. So welcome to the show, Diana.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I started the Patreon. My co-host is Aurora, and we have just a bunch of different resources for people and just a safe place for people to share, get to know each other, because I think a lot of us that have potentially had experiences, it can be really overwhelming. And to have a safe place to talk to people is really important. It is a Patreon, so there is a paywall, which I felt was really important just to kind of help cut down on the amount of trolls. But yeah, it's a beautiful community, and super excited to keep growing it. We had Aaron on, he did an interview with us, and we actually have Tyler coming on next month, and super excited to get into it today.
Yeah, me too. And I actually love your slogan, share your story, be disclosure, because that's exactly it. Like I've been saying that for a while. Like we a lot of people say that, like we are the disclosure. Mm-hmm. And then I like to take it a step further. If you think of the concept that we're all one, right? So if you're looking for that external disclosure, if we're all one, that external disclosure is in fact you. Yeah. So it comes from you regardless, because we are all one. And that's why we're doing this show. And that's why I think it's so important that you created that group, because you were at our secret space conference, and
my first conference.
Was it really?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It was awesome. I actually got this pendant there.
Oh, cool. Nice. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And there was a lot of experiences there. If not everyone was there because they've experienced something. And some people are kind of lost with that. They don't know where to go. They don't know who to talk to. So if we have a safe place for people to gather and share their stories and not be ridiculed or feel judged. And not only that, as soon as one person shares their story, it might unlock something in somebody else, and it creates this chain reaction, this ripple effect, and it's a really beautiful thing. So what has this group looked like, as far as the people that have showed up, the people that have signed up, and then the amount of stories and information you've learned? I'm sure it's like growing.
We're still pretty new. I just started it this year, but it's been incredible. Just the people that have shared their different stories with us, and even just talking with my co-host Aurora, we sharing our stories with each other. We were able to be like, oh my gosh, that happened to me too. I didn't even think about adding that to my timeline. Just a lot of different people's point of views, and just things that you don't necessarily think about that really add a lot of dimension to the things that you've experienced personally. And I totally agree. When you hear other people's stories or experiences, it definitely turns a light bulb on. You, Tyler, were actually somebody who jogged a really interesting memory for me. You had talked about in school, you had been asked to draw a spaceship, and you drew the black triangle. And I was like, oh, that's weird, but they never had us do anything like that. And then I was like, wait a second, in seventh grade, they had us draw an invention. And I drew a little black box that allowed you to pause time, leave and go do things, and then would reinsert you back in time where you had left.
Wow.
And yeah, and I thought about that all the time, like growing up. For some reason, that just would never leave my consciousness. And so when I started learning about things like this, and it was honestly, it was your guys' channel that really sent me down the rabbit hole of the SSP. I didn't think I was necessarily a part of any of that. I just found it fascinating. And I joined Tony Rodriguez's Patreon group. And then in one of their Q&As, I realized that I really need to put together a timeline, and that made me reevaluate things in my life and realize some pretty interesting things. And so you guys have been like such an amazing resource in learning about SSP and other things. So I'm super excited to see what else you guys do in the future.
Well, thank you. And we're super excited to have you here and hear all about what you're doing. But I want to go back to that black cube because I don't know where I've heard this. Aaron, you might be able to help me out. I have just listened to something where this person was talking about using a black cube to time travel. And it was a device. And then somebody else is like, oh my God, that's like some other people have talked about. We read and fly by so much stuff. I wish I save it sometimes, but that device, as far as I'm concerned, is most likely something that maybe you were even remembering, you know.
Yeah. And for me, most of my stuff is like I don't necessarily have memory so much as knowings of things that are supposed to be that we don't seem to have. Like before I even learned about Tesla, I was like, we're supposed to have wireless energy. Like, why don't we have wireless energy? And I also had a memory of we're supposed to have something like that can scan your body and heal you, that heals you really rapidly. Why don't we have that technology? And then I eventually learned about med beds, and I'm like, yes, like those are things that I remember. I remember when I first was using like a iPad or tablet, I was like, there should be a way that I can interact with this from my consciousness. This shouldn't be so labor intensive to do things. So I've had a lot of those just like knowings, and very confused as to why we don't have that in our world.
Right. Nothing makes sense down here. You start looking around, like half of the inventions are actually counterproductive sometimes. Well, and it's by design, but there's definitely that inner knowing that we all have on some level. That's why we're all here doing this work, having these conversations, because like it's like on the tip of our tongue. We don't quite remember how we know it, but we just know we know it.
Yep.
Um,
Some of that I do attribute to like soul memory of, I think a lot of us came in from higher dimensional planes, and the places that we've been before have had that. But I definitely think that there's plenty of us that probably have been involved in other things.
right.
Oh, yeah.
Or work together. Like maybe that soul recognition when we all get together is because we're working together on the astral plane or on a ship somewhere or whatever. And that's the whole thing of this disclosure to me is like this reality. Like you think it's just a few things, everything's black and white, but then once you really get into it, like this is nothing. This is not like everything about this reality is an illusion. It's not
Yeah.
reality. It's not a simulation. I mean, if anything, it really is a simulation, like an organic simulation, it seems like to me.
I think a lot more people are realizing that ever since the lockdown. I feel like so many things that we just took as a given or were just normal, suddenly we had this realization when we had that time to stop and be more internal and separate, and then go back out into the world and be like, this isn't right. None of this makes sense.
Right. And then that's when timelines started becoming apparent too. It was the first time ever you literally go to the grocery store and realize you're on a different timeline than the person standing next to you, who's completely masked up in fear from the propaganda and whatever the hell else they're doing. You can just like, you're like, whoa, I'm not in the same reality as this person.
That was super apparent too after going to the conference. Everybody there was so high vibe. Everything was so high vibe. I was I was in such a different dimensional experience. And then coming back home and like moving back into where I'm surrounded by people in like a slower, denser timeline, that was like the most apparent to me that it has been thus far since the beginning of all the craziness.
Right. That's why.
Right.
That's why. And Aaron, you'll attest to this because we've both been to multiple conferences. But some people just they don't know why, but like they just ended up there. Like I don't know why. I was just called. I was pulled there. Like it was. I wasn't planning on going. Somehow, last minute, I'm here.
Yeah. Totally.
I've been wanting to go to a conference for a really long time, and I was super excited that you had announced yours so far in advance because for me, my schedule tends to book like I with my other job, I usually book a year out. So to have that time to actually plan ahead was amazing because I've been wanting to go for so long.
Right. Exactly. Well, that was by design too. We wanted to announce it early so people could plan for it, especially with these times. But
Yeah.
going back to the experiences, the information, and all that stuff, I'm very curious. So, like, what was your background getting into all this stuff? You know, you also have your own website where you're an intuitive channeler and you do sessions. So, can you just kind of give us a little background on how you even got into this stuff and when the hell you discovered that there's a secret space program and all this stuff is real? You know.
So I kind of I started my awakening in like 2011. I started doing Kundalini yoga. I basically had a Kundalini awakening. Got involved with an intuitive group where I was doing like I think it was like 6 weeks, we would meet. And basically, I ended up being a key contributing member to the circle. People would ask questions and we would answer. And so it really gave me a beautiful opportunity to really hone and expand that part of myself. And I have always been pretty intuitive. I remember as a kid being able to feel energy and things. I not super conscious of it. I grew up in a very religious family, so a lot of these things like ETs and stuff like that just weren't really in my wheelhouse. But when I started going through my awakening, I found things like The Secret and What the Bleep Do We Know, Zeitgeist. And so that kind of started the beginning of my awakening. 2017 is when I kind of decided to kind of dedicate my life more to my spirituality. And I basically told Spirit, okay, take me on whatever journey you want me to. I'm giving myself up to that higher purpose. And it took me down that rabbit hole of learning how inverted everything is and basically getting red pilled really hard and going through that dark night of the soul. And I think my first real understanding of SSP stuff was like cosmic disclosure and things like that. I watched a little bit of Gaia, but I wasn't aware of that at the time. I didn't know that was even on there at the time. And so that was kind of in the background for me. It wasn't until you guys had your SSP month, I think it was like last February, and I saw all of these different people, and it was Tony Rodriguez is who I resonated with the most. And so I just started learning a ton about all of that. And I was part of his Patreon, and I have had some experiences like as an adult more so that I could be like, that's really weird. I think growing up, when you have things happen, because it's your life, it's just normal. And so you don't really question it too much. It wasn't until I was sharing some experiences I had in the Q&A that Tony was like, you really need to write out a timeline. And in those 3 experiences I shared, I had one. So throughout my life, particularly since I had my Kundalini awakening, I would have this phenomenon where when I would either be waking up from a nap or waking up while I was sleeping, I would get spiral slammed down into my body and I would feel like I was in an earthquake, just like absolutely like shaking, and it would be very disorienting. I actually had an ex-partner put his hands on me after I woke up and I was like, why is everything shaking? He's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, it feels like we're in an earthquake. And he's like, I can literally feel you vibrating with a crazy ton of energy. So something was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, fast forward these experiences. Usually this happened when I was sleeping. I had it happen a couple of times while I was awake. The first one in this series of events, I was actually driving. So it was really freaky and disorienting. I got spiral slammed back into my body while I was driving. Very disoriented. 2 weeks later, I had the same thing happen, but I was sitting at home. We were watching a show and I was paying pretty close attention to it. And the same thing happened. And all of a sudden we were in a completely different portion of the show. And I realized that I was missing 15 minutes of time. And then I had a third event, and I'm not sure if this one happened before the first two or the last two, but I all of a sudden had consciousness. I laid down to take a nap and I could hear machine noises. I could hear a respirator. I could hear a heart monitor. I could hear like different medical machine noises. And there were people standing around me talking. And somebody further away asked a question. The person right next to me said, "We're just finishing up." I got spiral slammed back down into my body. And I woke up with a searing pain across my forehead. I didn't have a mark or anything, but it was very, very tender for quite a while. And
what was across your forehead? I'm sorry.
It was like a searing pain.
Oh,
so
okay.
It was super, super tender. No mark, but just very painful. And it lasted the rest of the evening and then dissipated. But after that, I've been incredibly sensitive to like EMF, Wi-Fi. If I'm by a Wi-Fi device, I can feel it. And so based on those things, Tony was like, you should fill out a timeline. And then there were a lot of things in my life, childhood leading up, that made me realize that things.
Right. And so that's all incredible. And I actually kind of want to get into more of the logistics of the actual experiences, because I'm reading about this coincidentally right now in Dolores Cannon's book, The Custodians. And I just got done reading a part where they're talking about why people come back with bruises, how they're actually taken out of their body, but their physical body remains. And they describe that as a molecular reassembly. So they like reassemble your molecular structure. And when they disassemble and then reassemble it into a higher vibration of the frequency of the ship or wherever you are, because your physical body sometimes would actually just disintegrate, they say, would dissolve and be no more if they were to take you onto some of these ships because of the nature of the frequency.
Okay.
So when they bring you back, then it reassembles your molecular structure back into your physical body. And apparently, like, it's the human body. So if upon re-entry, if you move at all, this is the way it's described, if you move at all, even breathe, because apparently when your consciousness goes like that, you actually stop breathing, but it's so fast you don't know. But so the problem is if the human body moves at all, and they stressed at all, it stops the flow of that energy of the molecular structure, whatever it's doing. And it like creates sort of a blocking, and it'll bruise the skin. It'll appear as a bruise. And sometimes it's not actually like being mishandled or anything. It's just the effect of coming back and being reassembled. And it's really interesting the way it was described. I had never heard that before. And it makes me wonder about, like, a lot of these people think that they have these negative experiences, but maybe it's not that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. I hadn't heard that. I've read some of Dolores Cannon's books, but I don't know if I've read that one, but I'll have to check that one out. Yeah, I really wasn't sure what to make of my experiences. It was definitely very strange and unnerving. But I don't have any like negative feelings or anything towards it. It was just a really, really unexplained experience. My understanding has always been or more recently, when I would experience that like almost shaking, when I would enter back into my body, it was me shifting dimensional planes. It was just recalibrating to this density. So that would make sense.
Right. I mean, and I always wonder how they achieve that. How do they take your consciousness like that, but they actually disassemble it, apparently. And that's now we're talking like every group has their own method, right? So you never know, like each group of whoever is taking you has their own modality. But they also talk about being taken in an instant. So she used the example of you walk into the other room and you forgot why you walked into the other room. In that moment, you could have been gone and to the ship and back, and that's why you forgot what you were doing. And it happens in an instant while you're walking, while you're driving. It doesn't matter, because time and energy, we don't understand it. So you literally can. I'm gonna go grab a pencil from the other room, and then you get in the other room, and you're like, why did I just come in here? In that
That
instant,
happened to me a bunch of times too. Yeah.
Same.
Curious
right?
about that.
That you're taking all the time. It wouldn't surprise me, Aaron.
Yeah, probably.
After watching Jupiter Ascending, I was like, oh man, that was a mind trip. Like when they um basically do the time dilation and like put her back in that second where she's like, did something happen? But
Right.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
definitely experienced quite frequently. I walk out the room and then I'm like, and I've had other people say it's like when you walk through a doorway, it's a portal. So who knows if that's what's
Well,
happening? I don't know.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and anything can be a portal, I think. I really do. I mean, I don't know how it works energetically, if it's always there or if things have to be aligned, but I feel like I think maybe at our truest potential, we can open a portal ourselves, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I think before our DNA was messed with, we definitely had the ability to bilocate and do things like that. And, you know, as we're able to turn on more of our DNA, I think that things like that will become a possibility, quite frankly.
oh, absolutely. I think it's inevitable that we're moving back to that. It's just going to take some time because, we've all had our eyes ripped out down here.
Yeah,
uh,
a lot of distortion.
Yeah, so much so that like we're seeing like straight up glitches in the Matrix. Like I'm seeing footage of just the craziest things of like people freezing and not moving, birds frozen in the sky, planes, all these videos that we've seen, but they're showing up like in numbers. And people and just normal people are catching this stuff and they're like, what the hell is going on? And it's proven to be some sort of simulation.
I have a friend who's totally not into any of this type of stuff. And she was like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. I was driving down the highway and there was a plane just frozen over the highway. It wasn't going anywhere. It was just sitting there. And she's like, the only thing I can think of is that it was an ET and they're like cloaking as a plane. And then I had another friend recently share that they were in a different location and they kept seeing all of these people that they were like background people where they lived, like NPC type people.
Right.
And in the new place they're at, like even her kids were like, this is really weird. Like I'm seeing people that we know from where we live, and now they're all of a sudden background people here too. So just like noticing like really weird, glitchy stuff like that.
Right. That's so fascinating to me, the whole background people thing. I mean, it's a very apparent, like some of these people are just walking around on autopilot and you just
Yeah.
don't know what the hell they're doing. And then you got all the homeless people. I just watched this movie, Paradox Lost. It's fascinating. That's about time travel. But all the time travelers are here are disguised as homeless people, and they're all trained to be homeless people and blend in. And the guy gets in contact with somebody in from the time he travels to, and he explains to him 35% of all homeless people are time travelers waiting for their mission. I'm like, I wonder if there's something to that. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be I wouldn't be surprised at all.
We have
I
a
would.
lot of them. So I mean that it's kind of crazy. That's an interesting theory.
Right. Um, so I want to know, what are your thoughts on everything that's taking place right now? Uh, Queen Lizzy taking a
Yeah.
fall. The whole, anything to do with Trump, Q, or just in general, the shit show that's happening right now. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts? What do you see? I'd like to get people's opinions.
Yeah. Well, intuitively, I'll kind of backtrack to like my guide kind of came in the beginning of 2019 to kind of prepare me for like that things were going to fall apart. It was actually in 2017 when I was like, okay, I'm going to really devote myself. They're like, you have to learn everything now. And so I did all of that deep dive. And when they were kind of explaining things in 2019, they're like, you need to prepare yourself. Things are going to start falling apart. They showed me that there was going to be like an increasing like compression, and like we're going to feel an increased amount of strain and tension through about 2024. 25 and 26 will be more of like a changeover year, or there will be some sort of like relief of that energetic pressure. And then when we hit 27 through 30, it will be a much more like we'll be moving more into a visibly positive timeline. To me, it's just like energetically, I can feel the compression happening. It's like I don't feel like things are are finished falling apart and getting crazy. I very much agree. Sometimes it's hard to see how chaotic everything is happening in our world, but I really firmly believe that the more chaotic it looks out there, probably the better things are, because when the shift that we're shifting not only the earth, but ourselves into a higher dimensional frequency. So all of these lower dimensional, lower density frequency structures that we have in place have to fall apart. It's like that vibration is shaking everything apart. Everything is kind of falling apart. I don't think we would be seeing so much disorganization and just everything being so very obvious of the like major players if things were under control. We would be back where we were before, where everything just appeared to be very seamless. So I think the more chaotic it appears, the better. For as far as the queen, I just noticed that day before I even found out the energy was really off. Like it's been a really long time since I've had an anxiety attack. And granted, the day itself was kind of a hectic day, but I could tell energetically that things were really weird. I felt really off the next day. I tend to be pretty tapped into what's happening collectively. I would not be shocked that there were all sorts of like rituals and different things happening there when all of that was going on.
Yeah, I think that's all. Well, first of all, I agree with your timeline for one. That's the most practical, reasonable timeline. I don't see this happening overnight, like some people wish. I think it's more of a wishful thinking than when somebody really sits down and sits with that thought and looks around at the reality of the situation. Like we're not quite there yet for things just to be flipped. It's got to be a gradual progression, and collective healing, and the infrastructure has to be somewhat slowly modified to even accept any of these new technologies and all that stuff. So it's more of a natural progression than this just like slam in your face disclosure. But I definitely don't. I feel like you said, it's not done being chaotic yet. And like Aaron, you always say, like that's all a good sign. Like,
yeah,
in your opinion,
yeah.
I mean,
think about it. If the dark was winning, it would be smooth sailing, business as usual. They wouldn't want people to wake up. So why would none of that would be happening unless they're being taken out. And that's what's causing the chaos, because they're scrambling, things are happening, like everyone's seeing it. We wouldn't be seeing all this stuff. It's supposed to be hidden. And it has been for a really long time. And now it's finally so much is just out in your face in the open. They're telling you openly. Their agenda is like on camera now, like right. In public. Like they're just like saying it now. It's like because they don't have anything left to lose. They're like, they're desperate.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would not ever do that unless they're absolutely on their last legs and desperate. So
right.
Yeah, that's where we're at, and that's a great thing. It means we're so close to the big breakthrough of things, the truly amazing golden age and new earth manifesting. It's already here. It's just gonna continually, we're the ones really bringing it in.
Right. Well said. Well said.
Yeah, I very much agree. I think I also want to touch on the fact that I think a lot of people were disappointed how like the last 2 years has played out, thinking that there was going to be this like major shift and things were going to happen, at the beginning of 2021. And I really think that things have had to play out the way they need to. If you think about if, what everybody was hoping was going to happen, happened, we would not have the room for those who are not yet awake to awaken.
Right.
The amount of chaos that would have been generated from that would have been far more destructive than what we want. I very firmly believe, my guides always share this, we came in as energetic first responders. We are here to hold a vibrational frequency, to anchor that into the collective, and to help, energetically adjust things so that more people can wake up. And so I think the way things are playing out, people who previously would have just been like, oh, everything's fine, I don't notice anything, are suddenly like,
something's not right.
Don't seem right. This seems really convoluted and it's making me question things. So I think that it's really necessary for us to go through this really dense compression that we're experiencing in order to give as many people. I mean, we hear Ra talking about how, oh gosh, what is it called?
I don't know.
75 years. It's like the, oh my gosh. It's like basically we graduate to the next level. Basically, we're leaving this density and moving on to the next one. What was it?
The next density?
Yeah, he calls it something though. The harvest. That's what it is.
Oh, Ra, you said.
Right.
Oh yeah, Law of One. Yeah.
Yeah.
The harvest. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that, this is giving as many people the opportunity to move up in density, to have it be a little more chaotic and a little more obvious. So
yeah, and I think some of those dates and stuff, we were anticipating something to happen, or even like the solstice and stuff. We just talked about this, but I feel like stuff does happen on an energetic level that we can't see. I'm going to use this example again. A few episodes ago, we did a compilation of Valerie Barrow. She's since passed away, but she talked about expecting this mass sighting at Uluru in Australia and during this ceremony, and she didn't see anybody. And on the way back, she was like, "Where were you?" She was talking to him like, "We were there in numbers. You just couldn't. We could see you, but you couldn't see us." And I feel like that's the case most of the time with all these events that are happening right now. It's supposed to be a big day, big activation, something. I'm sure on some level it is happening. We just don't see it. And unfortunately, our vibration doesn't allow us to even really appreciate it, but it's still affecting us subconsciously and on a cellular level, I think.
December 20. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
December 21st, 2012 is probably the biggest
example.
one recently.
Right.
It was so hyped. It was like, and so many people were getting the information that like something big, massive some big, massive shift's going to happen. And then on the 3D surface level, it looked like nothing happens. And a lot of people only saw that and they were expecting some big 3D,
right,
massive thing. And they're just like, oh man, nothing happened. That was all fake. And they're upset by it. But like you said, it was probably a huge.
Right. It's our own ignorance. It's our own ignorance. Yeah. Go ahead, Diana.
People forget that we live multidimensionally. So it's like those things are happening just on different levels and densities. And it takes a while. Everything happens first in the energetic level and then manifests into the physical level. So it's going to take a little while for those things to trickle down into our world where it's just a slower density. And so I do very much believe those things are happening. I know like a couple of years back, everybody was talking about the event and these waves of things that were going to be spreading across. And it's like, well, we had the pandemic. They spread in waves. Like it didn't look like what we thought. Some of us were in bliss. Some people were in terror. For a lot of people in the lockdowns, it was amazingly blissful, peaceful. For other people, they were filled with fear. It was like the most terrifying time for them. I think we just don't always know how to interpret what those things are. And because we each have our own filter, it comes through a little bit differently. We all have different soul lineage. So the way we are going to interpret something is going to be way different than somebody else. And
Right.
so I think a lot of these things are happening, like in reference to like different sightings. I think that a lot of times we are so used to how we communicate and see things in the 3D that we forget that to communicate with somebody on that level, their level of communication is very different from ours. Like my best contact was when I was at ESETI, and I wasn't trying for any contact. It was still light outside, and I decided to create an energetic gift. I made it as like beautiful sounding, like I made it the smell of like wildflowers, as like beautiful rainbow, like just as many different like sensory things as I could. And I just sent it up as an energetic gift of like, thank you. I appreciate you. I don't know, like I have no expectations. And about 15 minutes later, while it was still light out, I was there actually with Aurora, and we saw a ship light up really bright in the sky for a couple of seconds and then power down. And then it was there for another second or two, and then it left. And it was just them saying hi. And I think you guys were actually talking about this in one of your recent videos, how so many people are usually like, oh, like we're expecting to be
Wow.
entertained.
Yeah.
And really to have that contact, we need to come from it from a place of like a higher consciousness where we're practicing things like telepathy. We're in tune with, you know, how they are energetically, because to them, our density could be very abrasive. So I think how we perceive things, how we experience stuff is really dependent on where you are in your vibrational shift.
Yeah, I agree. That was from Brian and Jen. Brian said that, you know, you don't want to be like, oh my God, there's an alien. Oh my God, and freak out. You just been like, what's up, bro? Where you been? You know, what took you so long? Just to treat them as an equal is what I'm trying to say. Treat them as an equal. And obviously,
your chance to connect with them too. And like he was saying, Brian said, like, that's your chance to interact with them, but you're just going, oh, wow. And that's it, you know, like,
yeah,
like it's like going up to somebody and meeting them and being like, oh, wow. And they're like, hey, man, like,
right.
You know,
right. It's true. It's like meeting a celebrity or whoever. You can be starstruck the whole time, or you can take advantage and have a conversation with this person. It's no different.
and send them love. And, you know, like they're picking up on your emotions and your energy too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that, you know, we always hear about this cleanup that's happening, and I think it is happening, but there's also like dimensional bleed through. I feel like there's a cleanup in other dimensions too that has to happen at the same time. And that's something that we forget about a lot when we're waiting for something to happen. It's just not just this black and white thing. And that's the whole nuclear bomb thing, and why all that was stopped is because that bomb doesn't just affect Earth, the Earth plane. It affects all dimensions connected and related, and all other planets that are connected via the cosmic web, which is a portal system, essentially. And if you just use the example of any movie that you've seen where there's an explosion and there's an air shaft, that explosion flies down the air shaft even quicker than it does because it's contained. I mean, it's the same principles, the same concept in space. So that's why, you know, go ahead.
Yeah, I think also one of the other things that's really important that we realize is, oh man, ADHD.
That you realize you were just taken and brought back right now.
Right, you just taken right
there. Basically, we're not or our collective is not exactly ready for a lot of the higher technologies that we have. I mean, you guys have had multiple conversations on a myriad of different episodes you guys have had where, you know, a lot of the technologies we have could be used in a really negative regard. And I was actually in meditation connecting to somebody in my star family, and she's like, a lot of times people are like children asking for fancy toys. You guys aren't ready for it. You want to sit at the galactic big kids table, but you're still being very juvenile in your behaviors. You're not doing the self-care. You're not caring for your planet. There are things that you guys have to do on a personal level before you can be ready collectively to have those things.
Right. 100%. If you were to drop a med bed right now to the masses and it was free, right? It was free for everyone to use. Guess what would happen? No one would go on any self-healing journey. They would realize, wow, this machine's awesome. So what would they do? They would go out and get drunk, snort coke, party, break a leg, hit the med bed, reset, and then go do it again because they know they can just get that reset. They would never, like, people would just take advantage of it, and they wouldn't respect it. Yeah.
Keep destroying the planet.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't be beneficial. And that's what she was explaining. It was like, there's so many things that you guys have to do to clean up in order to be ready for that. And it's not that, you know, there's tons of us that came in as star seeds that we came from that technology. That's why we have such a craving for it, because that's how we're used to living. And so it seems very foreign to be in a world where things are so backwards. We don't have those things. But for the people who on their souls, you know, growth, instead of like, we have gone through that trajectory already and we've cycled and looped back, to them, they're still on that upward path and they haven't hit a point where they can, you know, utilize that correctly. And so that's why we came in mass. We came in to hold that frequency, to help people, you know, bring their vibration up. So hopefully we can have that in this density a lot sooner than what would have been as a result of like how things are right now, because it is so inverted.
Right. And instead of waiting for something, take advantage of that time to teach yourself how to do it. Like, teach yourself how to heal yourself. And I don't know how to do that. I try, I sit with it, and I focus energy in certain areas and whatever, to the best of my ability. Other people are more gifted than others, but you're not going to ever get better if you don't sit with that and try and at least make an effort. Or I could just not care about my body and just sit there and complain every day because we don't have a med bed. And, you know, where does that get you? Nowhere. Let's talk about extra-dimensional beings, because we talk about the ETs, and I know that's something that comes up a lot. And so there's some people that claim that there are, like John D'Souza, he claims there are no physical ETs at all. All of them are extra-dimensional beings or multidimensional. There's no physical ETs in space. They're all in another dimension. I totally disagree with that. But what are your thoughts on what that looks like?
I agree that I think that there's both. I think that depending on what density you're in, things manifest differently. I think that there's definitely some that are fourth, fifth density that show up in the third dimension, but I definitely think that there are others that are more multidimensional, and because of that, things manifest in a different way. I actually was listening to a podcast where they've been doing research on plasma beings and how potentially extra dimensional beings are actually plasma beings. I do not have the science background to even sort of explain that, but it was really fascinating just to kind of give a different perspective of how things manifest into our world from those extra dimensional levels. I know for me, with my guides, they definitely feel more extra dimensional. Like, I don't have names for my guides. They have like a frequency feeling more than anything. For me personally, I do more connecting with like my higher self and those extra dimensional beings. I personally think that a lot of things like angels, demons, and stuff are extra dimensional.
Would you say? What'd you say, Aaron?
Of just beings, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Angels and demons are just different terms for. You could say ETs, but they are higher dimensional, and even the demons are, you know, they're like lower 40 probably, where a lot of these like really nasty negative entities reside. Demon is just a term for that. Angels would be probably like 5D and up, you know, where they appear like these god-like beings, or even like glowing or whatever, you know, light beings even, you know, you could call all those angels. And that's what in the Bible, when you read the Old Testament or just the Bible in general with those eyes, thinking about that, it's obvious to me that that's what angels in the Bible are. They're just ETs and higher dimensional beings that appear to people and get messages.
Yeah, one of my most profound experiences, and this is actually when I came out to my family as far as being an intuitive and being able to sense other beings. My mom was actually in the process of passing, and 2 days before she passed, there was an archangel, or at least who I interpreted as Gabriel the archangel, and he did not have wings, but he was giant. He had a very elongated face, slanted eyes. It was very much not what I expected it to be. The energy coming off of him was so different from any other energetic being I had experienced. He was standing in front of a tunnel of light, and I should have realized at that point my mom was going to be passing very quickly, but they had thought that she would be with us quite a bit longer. But it was like just incredible. His ability, or their ability to communicate, was so different because, with my guides, I do get like energetic downloads. A lot of times it is a conversation, but communicating with different dimensional beings comes through in a different way. And that was the most like intense telepathic like experience that I have ever had with an extra dimensional being. And I just find it fascinating that depending on who you connect with, it can be a very different experience.
Right. So where do we draw the line between a paranormal ghost experience and then extra dimensional ET experience? What determines a ghost, right? Is that a trapped soul? Is somebody who actually is still hasn't crossed over, hasn't transitioned? Or how do you define that?
I don't know if I can define it really. I mean, I think it is. It's like when that part of ourselves leaves the physical body, it's like, I personally have like a huge thirst for understanding because with reading Dolores Cannon's work, I think it's like In Between Lives or whatever. I can't remember the name of the book, but it's like when you do leave the physical body, like some of them talk about roaming the physical earth and interacting, and then others they cross through that tunnel of light. Like what dimension is that? Like where are you at dimensionally in those different levels? Is it like, are you just in a different density? Are you going to a completely different place outside of the universe that we know as like this place that we exist? There's the possibility that there's multiple universes. And so like, how does all of that fit together? I mean, I don't even have a guess because it's just so complex, and the human mind just has such a limited ability to comprehend that level of, just
right
amazingness.
Unless we were having these conversations from day one and they were teaching us this stuff as a kid. And by the time we got to an adult, we might be able to comprehend something like that because the collective consciousness would be completely different on a different frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're like these souls that don't transition. I think maybe they're in the fourth dimension or 4D. I think that's what Laura Van Tyne talks about. And it's a pretty nasty place. And that's where she works cleaning up that area because
oh yeah, I remember who she is. Yeah.
Right. And she would always talk about, like, let's just say, like the whole soul trap concept, right? Or a pedophile gets killed or they die. Yeah. Their soul doesn't cross over because they're lured or trapped. And then now that pedophile has reincarnated into a child. And basically a pedophile was born again with those tendencies. So her work is just crossing over all of those trapped souls and lost souls that are just floating around that I guess we would perceive as ghosts, right?
Yeah.
And God bless her for doing that work. Somebody needs to do it. And we can all do it though. Like if someone around us passes away or even an animal or anything, there's nothing stopping you. And I do this from just focusing my intention on that soul and like aiding them in a peaceful transition. And I think your intention alone could actually make a huge difference. I don't know if it works, but I do it.
Oh yeah, no, everything is intention. Like it's all about intention. I 100% agree with you. It's funny. Like my aunt, who is very intuitive as well, she was like, and she actually works as a hospice nurse. She's like, make sure you open the window after your mom passes, just in case, to like let anything out. And it's like, when you stage a place, you're supposed to at least have a window or a door open to let any of those energies leave. But yeah, I 100% agree. Having that intention to help assist, to make a smooth crossover, to clear that out is super important. We can all do it. It's as simple as intention.
Right.
Right.
All right. Quick rapid fire question. You don't have time to think.
Okay.
Queen Elizabeth, Draco reptilian or human?
Draco.
All
Draco.
right. Did she die a couple days ago or a few years ago? And time's up. Aaron.
A few years ago, at least, in my opinion.
How long ago?
I think at least a few years ago, if not longer. I don't know. That's just what I've heard intel that says that, and people, psychics, and people pick up on that. But somebody also said only 6 months ago is when she actually died. So I don't know, but I don't think that was actually her. I think that was either a clone or
a double or something.
Or CGI, whatever, like hologram.
Intuitively, the thing that came to me was, wasn't there some weird ceremony they did, like around, like they had like different jets flying, like releasing color, and like there was some weird ceremony that they did a couple months back.
The Jubilee ceremony?
Yeah.
With the Queen, like they were preparing for, like this date was planned. Like they've been planning her public death, the announcement of her public death, for probably a decade, and who knows if things have shifted and patriots are really in control, and that's been hijacked and it's been done to affect a positive timeline now. Some people said if she would have died a day later, the numbers would have been like all added up to 666. So that was taken away from them by doing it a day early. There's a million theories. It's all fun. At the end of the day, does it really matter? No, but I do think it is a catalyst for some major, I think it's not going to happen rapidly, like we said, but it's a big thing. And like a lot of people are using the chess analogy right now. Like the Queen has been taken off the board, and it's just really interesting to think about it in terms of a game. Go ahead, Aaron.
That Megan Rose video you sent me, she was talking about how the Queen on the front end is just like a figurehead that doesn't really do anything, right? But she said on the back end, she has all these connections and a lot of power because of that. And so she said the Queen now being gone has left like a power vacuum that all these elites now are going to like throw each other on the bus and eat each other alive, trying to gain the power that she had. And that's going to be a huge kind of catalyst for just like them eating themselves and taking themselves down.
Right.
And we're going to start seeing that. So I thought that's a very interesting thing. I almost wonder though, if it's also just like, if she did pass away a while ago, actually, and they could have done this at any time, why did they do it now? Maybe it's like a marker for where we're at now. They're almost like, it's like the white hats saying like, we're free now, things are going to start,
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I feel like that date was hijacked. Like it was done under like benevolent terms. I don't know. It's all theory.
I don't know.
I do think it's curious. Like instead of 10 days of typical mourning, they announced 17 days of mourning for the Queen, with like
17,
like almost like a slap in your face. And now I hate to bring up the whole Trump and Q thing, because that ship seemed like it sailed, but it hasn't. Like it's coming back around. And Trump now, just recently on Truth Social, he's retruthing instead of retweeting a bunch of Q related posts, including he retweeted or retruthed, and everybody went crazy, a picture of him wearing a Q pin from an account titled Patriots in Control. And and I think come on, like the media is going to go crazy over this shit, but who knows what it means. It's very interesting.
Yeah. My only thought is I get concerned when people potentially give their power away to there being outside forces that are going to fix everything, because I think it's still super important that everybody realizes that this is an inside job, literally. Like, I love watching the different things play out and kind of see, what all happens, because, when that stuff does come back up, it does make you wonder, what's happening.
Right. And I'm so glad you brought that up about the external, like, savior. And I always say that with Trump, I say, make sure that you don't give your power away. Like, he's not our savior. Yeah, it's great to have somebody in power that's not in the way, that's not, having this pushback, but at the same time, don't give your power away. And I've gotten people say that I have like Trump derangement syndrome because I say that. They get mad because some people, I think, actually want Trump to like come in and save and swoop in and save the day and, just clean everything up and we go back to America as we know it and all the stuff.
And that's not going to be how it is. And it's like, for me personally, I don't like to look at things as black and white. So for me, I like to have things like, I like to hold multiple possibilities on my shelf aligned with like different percentages that kind of match my reality. And so I hold that there is the potential that, that viewpoint is a potential. I also realize that there's so much corruption and that that so much stuff is orchestrated, that there's a certain portion of me that believes that because so many of us were rising up, they've given us a figurehead to rally behind to keep us distracted. There's also the possibility that all of the things that we're assuming aren't any of that. So it's like, I like to have lots of different viewpoints so that I don't become emotionally attached to any outcome. I want to stay out of cognitive dissonance as much as possible. If he ends up being somebody that helps massively shift our world and really truly is, because they very clearly hate him, and
right,
it does really make you wonder, like the saying of your enemy's enemy is my friend. If positive things happen, then awesome. I just personally don't want to give my power away to anybody, because I know ultimately I'm here to do a job. I try not to watch the media too much, just because it can be so distracting, but at the same time, it's really interesting. He's a really great distraction to the media and the players that are clearly have negative agendas, and so it's kind of fun to watch him troll people, and to kind of see, how things are going to play out.
And maybe just utilize it as that, like, you can almost look at it as entertainment at that point. And it's just very curious to see how it plays out and watch the reactions. But on some level, like, if we're going back to everything's a simulation, this is all a movie. It's so much of an illusion, like how much of this political stuff, it's all theatrics, right?
Yeah.
So on some level, whether it's a good psyop or a bad psyop, it's still a psychological operation that's not even worth you giving your energy to. But you can tune in and see what's happening, but don't let it control your reality or control you or your beliefs, because what the personal path of self-discovery has nothing to do with what's going on in the outside world. So
yeah, it's good to be informed, but don't be inundated. It's like, I really believe in watching and listening to everything. It helps you, in my opinion, avoid cognitive dissonance when you have as many viewpoints as you can have. That way, when something happens like out of left field, you can be like, well, I wasn't expecting that. That definitely wasn't my number one like guess on how this was going to play out, but that was a potential that I was at least viewing, and this, and this kind of made me wonder if that was a potential. So I think no matter how, you just had an orb go across the top of your screen.
I did?
Yes, in the corner of your screen.
Oh yeah, that's Dave. No, I'm yeah.
That was wild. Anyway, I totally derailed myself with that.
You derailed me too.
Yeah, don't give our power away, basically.
Right. We've gotten orbs before on this show. We'll usually see them when we watch it back.
Right. You don't even pick up. I almost think I just saw something in real time there. Anyway.
I've seen them in your house with my naked eye before.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I just saw some. Anyway, they're here. What's up, guys? Welcome to the show. Glad to have you tonight. I agree with everything you said, though. Absolutely everything you said. And I actually forgot what you said, but I do. I remember. I agree with it. I got so distracted. Yeah. Oh man, I really wanted to add something to that too. That damn orb, Dave.
Damn it, Dave.
Don't really remember, but bottom line is, yeah, don't give your power away. Don't allow it to distract you. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah. So there's this whole, like, I'm not dogging on anybody that covers this type of stuff that does deep dives, and they're playing a crucial role right now. And this whole patriot movement, everybody's analyzing all the stuff that's happening in the political arena because it all is a clown show, and there's a lot more depth to it if you know where to look. I appreciate all those people because they're reaching the masses. They're reaching a much larger audience that's snapping them out of their coma, out of their sleep cycle. And everybody plays a part. Everybody plays a role right now. No, even though, like we constantly say, it might be a distraction to focus on the political aspect of things, but there's people out there that need to focus on that so they can see what's happening to get to the next level. So I don't want
100%. I think that those people that do that are super important because we're all at a different point in our awakening journey. Mm-hmm. And those people were crucial to my awakening. Like the opinions that I held like 2 years ago are definitely different from what I hold now. And I think that's really amazing because depending on where the information's at, we all resonate with something different. We move through that information. And it's like people that you guys have had on your show that at the time I listened to, I was like, I do not resonate with this at all. This is not connecting with where I'm at in my journey. And then 6 months later, I may go back and finish watching and I'm like, okay, now I get it. That's really pertinent. Even though I don't agree with you, it helps me understand or see things from a different light. And I think that's so important. Don't judge it. Just hold space for it. If it's too much cognitive dissonance, then yeah, don't just set it aside. But I think it's amazing. All of these people have a different slice of the pie. And the more people that we can listen to, the less likely we are to fall into cognitive dissonance, and just the more expanded our awareness and understanding of this crazy choose your own adventure experience that we're in, right, that we can understand.
Exactly. And I think different influencers, different people, we all carry energetic keys and codes and the energy signature that affects everybody that listens to us. So you could have 5 influencers putting out the exact same information, but you're only going to be drawn to that one person because they specifically might have something that you need for your evolution, your soul's evolution, and it's activating you. So even if there's other people doing the work, like don't let it stop you from going out there and doing the exact same thing because you have something that the others don't that's going to affect different people that aren't attracted to those other influencers. It's just so crucial that everyone, if you're getting the call right now, do what you feel like you should be doing, even though you're going to be like, oh, nobody's following me. Nobody's watching. It doesn't matter. You're going to reach somebody and it creates a ripple effect.
100%. Super important. And like, that's why I even watch stuff that I know I'm not going to agree with. Like every once in a while, I'll throw on like, a segment from CNN just to see how much I don't resonate with it, just to kind of like tune into my cognitive dissonance and to like use that discernment to see,
It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah. Right. But I think it's important because it gives you the opportunity to be like, well, my internal compass is saying definitely no.
Yeah.
Right. You don't even have to watch it. Just go outside or go to the store and you notice all the people wearing masks again willingly. I'm like, oh, the news must be pushing something, new, what was it? Monkeypox or something else. I just saw a meme that said monkeypox flopped so bad it went straight to DVD. I was like, yeah, it's true. A lot of these unspoken truths are going to start surfacing. I think like so many of these things that like have been taboo for so long, just like the UFO, like the queen being a lizard. Like who would have ever thought that would be common talk? And I feel like we're just going to start getting more and more of that. And I'm excited to see where it goes. And it's just going to be, it is going to be chaotic. There's no question about it.
Yeah, it's insane the number of people that are starting to wake up. And it's, one of the things I feel really strong about is for our community to not like gang up and be like, oh, there's sheeple, because I can guarantee that unless, there's probably a few people that grew up in families where they were very awake and aware. But most of us had that awakening. We used to be part of that, you know, those people that were very well embedded into the matrix. And it's like that process of disconnecting is really hard. Like when you leave the matrix, I really feel like part of that dark night of the soul is a withdrawal. Like you're literally going through an addictive withdrawal from the matrix, because it's a very like when you're plugged in and you think everything's great, grand, fine, it's hard, it's lonely, it's intense when you leave that, and to have
Right.
to, swallow humble pie and realize that, what you thought was truth is not, is a really deep personal journey. So just holding compassion, holding kindness for those people that haven't done that yet, because it's scary. Like I give so much credit to everybody who does walk that path, because that dark night of the soul is crucial, but it's devastating.
Right.
And so just really being kind as people go through this, and hopefully, more and more people do awaken. It will be amazing when, you know, someday if we have a truthful, like honest media, that this is normal talk.
Right. I love that. Yeah.
Amen.
Amen to that. Man, it must be time to wrap this up because now I forgot what I was going to say. Um, oh, pull me back. What were you just saying? We were
Just talking about how leaving the matrix and like going through an
yes,
awakening is
I
challenging.
remember. Right. And I remember like that happened to me, like all of us, right? We were all there. That's why you can't like it is. We do look around like I don't see at this point how this person just doesn't get it. But at the same time, I'm not belittling them or judging them because we were all there. Like we were all there in our own way, in our own version. But I didn't
Mhm.
know what to do with myself when I left that. Like nothing like what I used to think was fun was no longer fun to me. So I would just sit there at home and not know what to do with myself for like years, the first couple of years. And finally, until you start, it's like there's addictive. It is an addiction. You don't even realize it. And you can find yourself slipping back into some old ways and then you pull yourself back out. It's a very much of a come and go thing until you finally just uh,
Yeah.
get to a point where like, okay, that's literally no longer serving me at all. Like, and it's not easy. And I've had like 5 dark nights of the soul. I mean, it never ends. As soon as you think you're healed, the universe lets you know, no, next, you're just at the next step. And this one's even harder.
Yep.
Uh,
You just kind of go through those layers, and the dark nights of the soul are challenging, but there's always like such an amazing gift when you come through the other side. There's so much growth, and it's like any of those times that we have, darkness in our life, there is usually a beautiful light that we get afterwards that helps us grow. And it's like just from an overall soul perspective, regardless of what happens here, all of the chaos, all of like the things we have, we don't have, the only thing we get to take with us is our soul growth. The
mhm.
only thing that goes with us when we leave is that. So ultimately, even if the whole world falls apart, if you can still have a beautiful soul experience, that is what you're taking with you. So really, all of this chaos that's happening on the outside in a lot of ways doesn't matter. This is like a drop in the bucket of our entire existence. This is like we came to like be wowed by these times, but really the thing that we really came for is expanded soul growth. So focus
Right.
on it.
Yes.
You don't,
Amen.
you don't get to take your favorite crystals with you guys. Sorry.
No.
um, well, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
I
Uh,
think you guys.
yeah, can you please let people know about the Alliance of Experiencers and how they can follow you and your own website and what you do and all that?
Yeah. So you can find our Patreon group. It's Alliance of Experiencers. We do also have a website, Alliance of Experiencers. We do. So we have two tiers. Our circle 1 is just video. Circle 2, people can come. We have monthly meetings where you can kind of share your story, get to know other people. And then we will also be offering one-on-one sessions for people who are experiencers that don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing in a group setting. So they can work either with myself or with Aurora. If you want to find me, my website is dianadunbar.com. I do intuitive sessions. I do have a YouTube channel. It's pretty bare. I sell Etsy jewelry because I am super big into my crystals. And so I make crystal-based jewelry. And if you want to email me directly, you can either go through my website or it's dianadunbarintuitive at gmail.com.
And just quickly, what if someone wants to book a session with you, what would that look like for them if they're seeking help?
Yeah. So my session, it's 1 hour of one-on-one time, but I do a half hour beforehand where I go into a meditative state. I bring through information from spirit about, for me, it's like I generally kind of feel into somebody's energetic container, what's kind of happening. That's kind of how when I tap into people's energy, I see it as like their auric container or their auric field, and just kind of maybe the density they're carrying, what's kind of going on. If there's any messages from their spirit team, I'll bring that through. And then we just kind of go through, most people come with questions. We kind of go through their questions. I check in with my spirit team, source, just to see what kind of intuitive feedback I can give. And then at the end of the session, when we're done, I actually go through and I make a resource guide. So I may like recommend books, YouTube videos. I have a list of meditations that I've created, and I create basically a resource guide so that after the session, you have something tangible that you can take and continue your journey with. For me, being neurodivergent, I think it's really important to have something that you can have as just a guide and something that you can refer back to. So that's how I do my sessions.
Right. And that's beautiful. Guys, take advantage of it. Her link is below in the description. Yeah, you're doing some really great work. Keep it up. The support group is amazing. I really love that. I think, and there's a few, Misha Johnson does it. There's a few people that do it, but even more people need to do it because, like I said, you're going to be drawn to whoever you're drawn to. So definitely keep that up. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all for tuning in and listening to us. Any last words before we wrap this up, guys?
No, it was just a delightful experience. Thank you so much for having me, and love your guys' podcast. So I can't wait to see what you have in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great night, everybody, and we will see you next time.